They want me to denounce it. The FBI agents who visit every few months, the deradicalization counselors, the imam they brought in, a man who quotes the Quran selectively, the parts about peace and mercy, ignoring the verses about struggle and sacrifice. They all want the same thing, for me to say I was wrong, that I was brainwashed, that I didn't understand what I was doing. But I understood perfectly. Every step, every choice, every consequence. My name is Amir Khalid al-Nouri. I am 43 years old. The media called me many things. Terrorist, extremist, traitor. The government convicted me of material support to terrorism, conspiracy to commit acts of terror on U.S. soil, and attempted mass murder. I will die in this federal prison. That is certain. Life without possibility of parole, they said, as if parole was ever a consideration for someone like me. I need you to understand something from the beginning. I am not insane. I was evaluated by 4 different psychiatrists. All concluded the same: competent, rational, fully aware of my actions. I don't hear voices. I don't have delusions. I made choices, deliberate choices, and I would make them again. Let me start where it truly began, not in some cave in Afghanistan or a radical mosque in Yemen, but in Sana'a, the city where I was born in 1982. My father was a shopkeeper. We sold textiles in the old market. My mother stayed home, raised 5 children. I was the middle son. We were not wealthy, but we were not poor. We had food, education, faith. My father prayed 5 times a day without fail, taught us the Quran, taught us that Islam was not just religion but a complete way of life. But he also taught us that religion was personal, between a man and Allah. He never spoke of politics, never spoke of jihad or struggle or the West. He was a simple man who wanted his children to have better lives than he had. I was a good student, memorized the Quran by age 12, studied English because my father said the future belonged to those who could speak the language of power. I dreamed of becoming an engineer, of building things, bridges, buildings, infrastructure. I wanted to create, not destroy. In 2001, I was 19 years old. That September, everything changed. Not because of what happened in New York, though that mattered, but because of what happened after. The invasion of Afghanistan, then Iraq, the images on television, the bombs, the occupation, the humiliation. I watched my father watch the news, saw something break in him. He never spoke against America. He was too cautious for that. But I saw it in his eyes. The realization that Muslim lives were worth less than Western lives, that our blood was cheaper, our deaths less mourned. In 2004, I came to America. Student visa, University of Michigan, engineering program, full scholarship from a program designed to bring moderate Muslim voices to the West. I was supposed to be a success story, proof that Muslims could integrate, could become American, could leave behind the backward ways of the Middle East. And for a while, I believed it too. I believed in the American dream. I believed that here, in this land of opportunity, I could be judged by my merit, not my name or my faith or the color of my skin. I was naive. The first few months were exciting. Everything was new. The campus, the snow. I'd never seen snow. The freedom. Students walking around in shorts and tank tops. Girls talking freely to boys. Alcohol everywhere. Music. Laughter. It was overwhelming and exhilarating. I made friends. American friends. A guy named Jake from my engineering class who invited me to parties. A girl named Rachel who helped me with my English essays. They were kind. Genuinely kind. They asked about Yemen, about my culture, about Islam, and I told them, carefully, the sanitized version, the version that made Islam sound like a personal spiritual journey, not a comprehensive system of life. But I noticed things, small things at first. The way people looked at me when I prayed, the comments about my beard. I kept it short then, neatly trimmed. The questions that always came, but you're not one of those Muslims, right? You don't believe in Sharia or jihad or any of that stuff. And I'd laugh it off. No, I'm just a regular guy. as if being Muslim meant you couldn't be regular. After the initial curiosity wore off, I became background, the foreign student, the token Muslim friend people mentioned to prove they weren't prejudiced. I have a friend from Yemen. Really nice guy. Nothing like those terrorists. I graduated in 2008, top of my class, had job offers from 3 engineering firms. I chose one in Detroit. Good salary, good benefits. The American dream, right? I got married in 2009. Her name was Layla, Yemeni American, born in Detroit to immigrant parents. She wore hijab, prayed 5 times a day, but also had a master's degree and worked as a pharmacist. We thought we could have both, our faith and our success, our tradition and our modernity. We were wrong. The marriage lasted 3 years. We divorced in 2012. No dramatic reason, no infidelity or abuse, just erosion. She wanted to be more American, less visibly Muslim. She talked about taking off the hijab, about maybe not fasting during Ramadan when it interfered with work, about fitting in. I wanted the opposite. The more I lived in America, the more I saw the hypocrisy. The wars in Muslim lands justified by democracy and freedom, while supporting dictators in Saudi Arabia and Egypt. The drone strikes that killed thousands of civilians, called collateral damage, as if Muslim children were just unfortunate calculations. The torture at Abu Ghraib and Guantanamo, the surveillance of mosques, the entrapment of young Muslim men by FBI informants creating terrorists out of angry, confused boys. I watched it all, and I became angry. Layla said I was becoming radical. I told her I was becoming awake. We fought, constantly, about politics, about religion, about what it meant to be Muslim in America. She said we had to compromise, to adapt. I said, compromising your faith isn't adaptation, it's surrender. We divorced amicably. She remarried 2 years later, to a white convert who prayed once a week and ate halal only when convenient. Last I heard, they're happy. Good for them. After the divorce, I threw myself into my faith, started attending a different mosque, a smaller one, where the imam didn't dilute the message, where we talked about the reality of Muslim suffering worldwide, where we didn't pretend that Islam and Western secularism were compatible. I met brothers there, real brothers, men who understood, who had also tried to integrate, to assimilate, to be the good Muslims, and who had also realized it was impossible, that America would never truly accept us, that we would always be suspects, always be the other. One brother, Yusuf, had been surveilled by the FBI for 2 years. His only crime? Attending a lecture by a scholar critical of U.S. foreign policy. Another, Ahmed, had been detained at the airport 17 times. 17. His only crime? Having a beard and a Muslim name. We talked, a lot, about the Ummah, the global Muslim community, about our responsibility to our suffering brothers and sisters, about whether living comfortably in the West while Muslims died in Syria, Yemen, Palestine, Iraq, Afghanistan was acceptable, whether silence was complicity. I started reading, not just mainstream scholars, but the others, the ones called extremists. I read Sayyid Qutb, Anwar al-Awlaki's lectures. I read about the concept of hijrah, migration, and jihad struggle. I read the history of colonialism, of how the West had carved up Muslim lands, installed puppet governments, extracted resources, and then blamed us for our poverty and chaos. And slowly, so slowly I didn't notice it happening, my worldview shifted. I stopped seeing myself as Amir the engineer, Amir the American resident. I started seeing myself as Amir the Muslim, part of a global struggle, part of a fight that had been going on for centuries. By 2015, I was attending study circles, small groups of brothers who met in apartments, not mosques. Too many mosques were infiltrated, we knew. Too many imams were compromised, preaching a neutered Islam approved by the government. We discussed what it meant to truly live Islam, not the watered-down version, the real thing, a complete system, political, social, economic, spiritual. We discussed whether it was permissible to live under non-Islamic law, whether we had an obligation to fight against oppression, whether jihad was only defensive or could be offensive against those who waged war on Islam. I know what you're thinking, that we were being radicalized, that some shadowy terrorist organization was recruiting us. But there was no organization, no handler, just brothers reading texts, discussing interpretations, coming to conclusions. The conclusion I came to was this, that living peacefully in America while Muslims were being slaughtered worldwide was not an option, that I had a responsibility, that my engineering skills, my American residency, my clean record, all of it was a trust from Allah, and I needed to use it. In 2017, I made contact, through encrypted channels, with brothers overseas who were actually fighting, not keyboard warriors, not angry teenagers, but actual mujahideen, soldiers of God. They didn't ask me to join them. Syria was collapsing. The caliphate was falling. They needed something else. They needed support from within the West, financial support, technical support, and eventually direct action. I started sending money, small amounts at first, through cryptocurrencies, through Hawala networks, through methods the FBI's algorithms wouldn't flag. Over 2 years, I sent over $80,000, money I'd saved, money from my engineering salary, money I'd planned to use for a house, for a future. I didn't need a future. The Ummah needed support now. But money wasn't enough. In 2019, they asked if I would consider more, something that would strike at the heart of the enemy, something that would show the world that Muslims weren't just victims, that we could fight back, that there were consequences for the wars, the drone strikes, the humiliation. They asked if I would carry out an operation on American soil. I didn't answer immediately. I prayed for weeks. I read Quran. I studied Hadith. I looked for clarity, for certainty, because I knew what this meant. There was no going back. This wasn't sending money. This was crossing a line that had no return. But every time I prayed, I saw the images. The children in Yemen dying from Saudi bombs, American bombs. The children in Gaza bleeding in the rubble. The children in Syria gassed by Assad while the world watched. The children in Iraq born with defects from depleted uranium. The children. Always the children. And I thought, if their children can die from our government's policies, why should American children be safe? Why should American civilians sleep peacefully while Muslim civilians are slaughtered? What makes American blood more sacred? I know how that sounds. I know you're recoiling right now, but I need you to understand. I didn't reach this conclusion easily. I didn't wake up one day hating children. I was pushed here by watching years of injustice, by the cognitive dissonance of living in a country that preached freedom while bombing hospitals, by the realization that peaceful protest, voting, writing letters, none of it mattered. None of it changed anything. Violence was the only language the powerful understood. So I said yes. The plan was simple. I worked at an engineering firm that consulted on infrastructure. I had access to building plans, security systems, structural vulnerabilities. I would identify a target, a soft target, maximum casualties, maximum psychological impact. I spent months planning. I chose a location, a shopping mall outside Detroit, the Somerset Collection, upscale, always crowded, especially on weekends, especially during the holidays. I wasn't planning to use bombs, too difficult to acquire materials without detection. Instead, I would use what I knew. Structural engineering. I identified support columns, calculated load-bearing capacities, figured out exactly where and how to create a catastrophic collapse. The plan was to use a combination of vehicle impact and pre-positioned explosives, drive a truck loaded with fertilizer-based explosives into the central support structure, detonate, bring down the entire West Wing during peak shopping hours on Black Friday. Estimated casualties, 300 to 500, maybe more. I began acquiring materials, slowly, carefully, fertilizer from different farm supply stores across 3 states, diesel fuel, detonators purchased separately through different sellers. I rented a storage unit 2 hours away under a fake name. I built the device over 3 months, And then I made a mistake. One mistake. I needed a specific type of wire. Specialized. I couldn't find it locally. So I ordered it online, from my home computer, using my real name. That order flagged in some NSA database, combined with my previous travel to Yemen in 2014, a family visit, nothing more. Combined with my mosque attendance, combined with my donations, some of which, unknown to me, had reached flagged individuals. The FBI had been watching me for 6 months when they raided my storage unit in November 2019. They found everything: the device, the plans, the manifesto I'd written, explaining why, explaining that this was retaliation, that this was justice for the thousands of Muslims killed by American weapons. I was arrested, charged. The media had their story. Homegrown terrorist. Engineering degree turned deadly. The radicalization of an immigrant. My lawyer tried to argue. Entrapment. Tried to say the FBI had pushed me toward this. But there was no FBI informant in my case. No underdog agent encouraging me. This was all me. My choices. My plan. The trial lasted 5 weeks. The prosecution presented the evidence. The device. The plans. The manifesto. The money transfers. My search history. Years of watching execution videos, reading jihadist literature, researching previous attacks. My lawyer put a psychiatrist on the stand. He testified that I showed signs of radicalization, that I'd been influenced by extremist ideology, that I needed deprogramming, not prison. But I refused to play along. When they put me on the stand, against my lawyer's advice, I told the truth. That I knew exactly what I was doing. That I wasn't crazy or brainwashed. That I had made a rational decision to fight against an empire that had been killing my people for decades. The jury deliberated for 4 hours, guilty on all counts. The judge sentenced me to life without parole, said I showed no remorse, no rehabilitation potential, that I was a danger to society. He was right. I showed no remorse, because I felt none. Do I regret that I failed? Yes. I regret that my operation didn't succeed, that those 300 people got to go home to their families while thousands of Muslim children never will. But do I regret trying? No. I know what you're thinking. That I'm a monster. That I'm evil. That I wanted to kill innocent people. But here's the thing. There are no innocent people in a democracy. Every American taxpayer funds the military. Every American voter, even by not voting, consents to the government's actions. Every American who lives their comfortable life while their government murders abroad is complicit. You can't claim innocence while your taxes buy the bombs, while your soldiers occupy Muslim lands, while your government supports dictators who torture and kill. You don't get to be innocent civilians while Muslim civilians die by the thousands. That's the lie the West tells itself, that their civilians are innocent, that their children matter more, that their lives have value while ours are just numbers on a news ticker. I rejected that lie. The other inmates here keep their distance. I'm in the Supermax section, 23 hours a day in my cell, 1 hour in a concrete yard, alone. No contact with other prisoners except through walls. The guards treat me with professional hostility. They call me terrorist when they think I can't hear. Sometimes when they know I can. I don't react. What would be the point? I pray 5 times a day. I read Quran. I have my faith. That's more than most people in this prison have. The de-radicalization counselors come every few months. They show me videos of former jihadists who've seen the light, who've renounced violence, who've embraced the true Islam of peace and tolerance. I tell them the same thing every time. I haven't changed my mind. I won't renounce what I believe. I won't apologize for trying to fight back against an empire built on Muslim blood. They leave frustrated. Mark their reports. Subject shows no progress toward de-radicalization, continues to hold extremist views, remains high risk. Good. Let them be frustrated. My family disowned me. My father sent one letter after my arrest. It said, "You have brought shame upon our name. You are no longer my son." My mother wrote nothing. My siblings wrote nothing. In their eyes, I'm dead. Better to have a dead son than a terrorist son. Layla, my ex-wife, gave an interview to NPR, talked about how I'd changed, how I wasn't the man she married, how she'd seen warning signs but hadn't known what to do. She cried on air, got sympathy, got to be the brave Muslim woman who escaped a dangerous man. She didn't understand then. She doesn't understand now. I didn't change. I woke up. There's a difference. The imam they brought in, the moderate one, tries to convince me I've misunderstood Islam. He quotes, "Whoever kills an innocent person, it is as if he has killed all of mankind." I quote back, "And fight them until there is no fitna, and the religion is entirely for Allah." He says I'm taking verses out of context. I say he's ignoring context. That Islam has always been a religion of both peace and sword. That the Prophet himself, peace be upon him, was both a spiritual leader and a military commander. That jihad is not just an internal struggle, but an external one against oppression. We go in circles. He leaves, writes his report. Subject remains ideologically committed to violent extremism. Yes, I do. If I could go back, would I change anything? Tactically, yes. I would be more careful. I wouldn't make that online purchase. I would have found another way to get that wire. I would have succeeded instead of being caught. But morally? Ethically? No. I would make the same choice. Because the alternative, living peacefully while my ummah suffers, is unacceptable to me. People ask me, don't you care about the children who would have died? The mothers? The families? I answer, do you care about the Yemeni children starving because of American-backed Saudi blockades? Do you care about the Afghan children blown apart by drones? Do you care about the Palestinian children shot by Israeli soldiers using American weapons? If you care about American children but not Muslim children, then you're the hypocrite, not me. I'm consistent. I believe all innocent life is sacred, but I also believe there are no innocent civilians in a nation actively waging war. That citizenship in an empire makes you complicit in that empire's crimes. You can disagree. Most people will. Most people can't handle the moral consistency required to accept that their comfortable lives are built on others' suffering. I can. I did. And I acted on it. The hardest part of prison isn't the isolation. It's the time, the endless hours to think, to remember, to imagine what might have been. I imagine the news reports, the chaos, the buildings collapsing, the screaming, the blood, the terror. And I imagine somewhere in Yemen or Syria or Palestine, a child seeing that news and thinking, finally they feel what we feel. Finally they understand. That thought brings me peace. I know I'll die here. My heart is strong. I'm only 43. I could live another 40 years in this cell. 40 years of concrete and steel and isolation. But I'm not afraid of death. Death is a return to Allah. Death is martyrdom for those who fight in His cause. Whether I died in that attack or die old in this cell, the outcome is the same. I stood up. I fought back. I refused to be a silent victim. That matters. The FBI comes sometimes, asking about networks, about contacts, about others who might be planning operations. They offer deals, reduced sentences, better conditions. They think I'll break, that the years will wear me down, that I'll trade information for comfort. I tell them nothing, because there's nothing to tell, but also because even if there was, I wouldn't betray my brothers. That's the difference between us and them. We have loyalty. We have principles. We don't sell each other for convenience. Sometimes I pray that Allah grants success to those still fighting, those who haven't been caught, those who are planning, those who will succeed where I failed. And I pray that when they do, the world will finally understand that you cannot wage war on a people for decades and expect them not to fight back. That violence begets violence. That terror creates terrorists. America made me with its bombs, its occupations, its hypocrisy, its claim to value life while devaluing Muslim life at every turn. I am America's creation and America's judgment. The lights in my cell will go out soon. Mandatory lights out at 10 p.m. I'll pray Isha. I'll read Quran until my eyes get heavy. I'll sleep on my thin mattress. And tomorrow I'll wake up and do it all again. Every day the same. Every day, one day, closer to meeting my Creator. Every day, one day, I stood firm in my beliefs. Didn't compromise, didn't apologize, didn't surrender. They call me terrorist. I call myself mujahid, freedom fighter, soldier of God. History will judge which label is more accurate. And history is written by more than just the victors. It's written by those who refuse to be silent, who refuse to accept injustice, who refuse to bow. I didn't bow. The guards are making their rounds. Final count before lights out. I can hear their keys jangling, their boots on concrete, the sound of doors locking, one after another, hundreds of men locked away, forgotten. But I won't be forgotten. My name is in the files, in the databases, in the textbooks about terrorism that will be written, in the case studies, in the warnings about radicalization. I'm the cautionary tale, the example of what happens when immigration goes wrong, when integration fails, when a Muslim can't become American enough. Except I was American enough. I had the degree, the job, the marriage, the success. I did everything right according to their playbook, and it still wasn't enough. Because it was never about integration. It was about submission, about abandoning my identity, my faith, my sense of justice. I refused, and that's why I'm here.